Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in about 2 to 3 minutes. Just give everyone a couple minutes to sign in, and then we'll get started around 7:03. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Melandra. I'm the Borough Administrator in Glassboro, and I'm going to serve as your moderator tonight for this panel discussion. And the purpose of why we're all here tonight is around Rowan's restart plans. On the panel tonight, you have the Mayor of Glassboro, John Wallace. You have the Chief of Police of Glassboro, John Palillo. You have Joanne Connor, President's Chief of Staff. Joanne's also serving as public safety and serving as the borough liaison. You have Tony Lohman, Provost. You have Scott Woodside, Director of Wellness Center. Kevin Coet, Dean of Students. Lieutenant Adam McCain, Rowan Police, sitting in for Mike Cantner. And Monica Shealy, SVP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So just a couple quick notes, and then we'll get started around the event tonight. We have an hour to hear an update from each of the panelists, and then we'll do a question and answer. Everyone has had an opportunity to present questions earlier. I have those questions that have been presented earlier. I will read them to the panelists after their opening remarks. If you have a question during the presentation, please feel free to ask it. Know that I and the other panelists will only see it. You will not, but I will be writing it down, and we will try to get it to the panelists. If we run out of time, we will do our best to ask all the questions, but if we run out of time, you can email any of the panelists, you can email me, and I can get the information to the panelists. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Glassboro's Mayor, John Wallace.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank everyone that is either phoned in or dialed in to participate in this event. Um, I would like to thank our panelists for participating in this event. And as Mr. Melandro kind of alluded to at the beginning, the purpose of this event is to try to bring the residents, student population, anyone that has a interest in the reopening plan that Rowan is implementing now, has been working on for months and months, how Glassboro and Rowan are partnering to ensure the safety and well-being of any and all people that come to Glassboro, either to shop or to just enjoy the sights or to further their education at Rowan University. Again, thank you. We will entertain and hopefully dispel any worries or concerns that you may have. As you can see from the panelists we have brought in leadership from Rowan as well as the borough to make sure that everyone is confident that we have all bases covered, if you will. With that being said, I will again turn it over to our moderator and look forward to the questions and concerns that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wallace. And at this time, I know Joanne Connor has some opening remarks. Joanne?
Thanks, Ed, and thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a few quick moments to say thank you for this opportunity. We are grateful to be able to communicate directly with the community and are happy to do so as frequently as needed. We take your safety and your well-being incredibly seriously, and we want to make sure that you get that message tonight. My name is Joanne Connor. I've been with the university for 10 years, and I've been working with the president for about 8.5 in his office. And we have a team here that's been committed to the university for quite a while. Our newest member is Kevin Kett, our Dean of Students, who you'll hear from shortly, and who I think that you'll feel real good about. We're all here again and have been planning for months and months how we're going to operationalize the plan that we put together, which we want to make sure that any community members who have questions about that we can answer for you. And we want to make sure that you understand that it is flexible and that we are being prudent. We are taking the health and safety of not just the students and the employees of Rowan of the utmost concern, but also of the entire university community. And that includes all of the Glassboro residents. So we're anxious to share with you what we've been planning, how we plan to operationalize it, and to make sure that you understand that we're prepared to shift as many times as necessary if there are situations that arise, and there very well may. But our plan has been built on flexibility. And again, we are taking this very seriously and closely monitoring the situation. I wanted to just share that for me, this is also personal. Some of you know that my mother was actually diagnosed with COVID back in March. She overcame a 5% chance of survival. She spent 30 days in Cooper, 10 days on a ventilator, 2 doses of the anti-malaria drug. And actually, I think it was the proning that saved her life. It was Wednesday, and they told us by Friday we had to make a decision about whether or not to take her off the ventilator and put her on a morphine drip and let her go. She made it out of the hospital. She spent 45 days in an acute care facility after that. She has suffered permanent damage to her heart, her lungs, and her kidneys, but she's here, and it's a miracle. So the entire emergency operations team, who was represented here today on the call, went through that entire process with me. And so meeting every day, hearing updates about Mom. So we know that this is both professional and personal. And we just want you to know that we care for you and for all of our neighbors, and that we're going to do everything we can to keep you safe. So thank you again for having us. And we look forward to not just a one-time dialogue, but to continued conversations throughout the year.
Thanks, Joanne. And Joanne, I have to say, just real quick, I can't thank Rowan and your commitment in controlling this pandemic, the weekly calls that we're having. In my 20 years of being involved in government in Glassboro, I think this is the closest that we've ever been, and I thank the university for that.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure.
Let's turn it over to Tony Lohman, who will give us an update on Rowan's plans for academics. Tony?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Joanne, for the comments. Those are a little bit quite touching. Actually, I think we've all been through this. This has been a long run for us. For me as provost in charge of the academics, the minute we left in March, and March 20th to be exact was the day we packed up and left our office. We've been planning for this, and it hasn't come easy. We've spent many hours looking at best practices, listening to public health, listening to our students, listening to our faculty, listening to our staff, listening to our community. And ultimately, we came down to the decision we did about reopening to create a plan that was as flexible as possible, that could provide for the needs of our students and the institution and the community, and be able to flex in and out of the safest modes possible so we could deal with what this pandemic has thrown at us. That hasn't been easy. Flexibility has been great for us because you've seen other universities make decisions and be stuck with them as conditions changed and do rapid transitions to closed or rapid transitions to opening. But we put ourselves in a position where we can adapt. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've gotten changing guidance out of the state where we could actually have more in-person instruction. And what we're seeing is the students want to be here. And we want to provide them an education. Our educational plan, as we start out, will be a mix of hybrid online experiential learning as well as remote lecture type classes. If conditions continue to stay where they are, we will, over the course of the first couple of weeks, begin to bring back more face-to-face classes for our students. Right now, we're sitting with, we expect about 4,200 to 4,300 students to be residing in the dorms. And we made that choice for a number of reasons. One, it's in the best interest of our students to give them a safe place to learn, food, access to technology, and ability to access the campus as needed. And with the turnout we've gotten, we've seen that this is what our students want. On campus, in addition to the class offerings, we're going to make many spaces available, not just our library, but computer labs, classrooms, collaboration spaces, conference rooms, available for our students to use, study, and learn. So we're going to do everything possible to keep them engaged with their learning and keep them on campus. And we believe that we've got an excellent group of students. So we know that there's going to be some challenges where we know they're not going to behave perfectly, but we think we put things in place to really provide a meaningful education and a meaningful opportunity for living in our community. And again, we took this decision-making process very seriously because we know Glassboro is our home. Glassboro is our community. And I've been at the university 7 years. From when Rowan Boulevard was nothing but a dirt pile next to where the Marriott was going up. And now we look at this incredible, vibrant town where people come all times of the years to eat, to shop, to go to events. And that's one of the drivers that's helping bringing students now to our campus as well. So we know that we have to weather this storm as a good neighbor and with our community. And so that we come out of this, again, with a better relationship than we've ever had and continue our upward trajectory together. And I'll add my personal note to this as well, is to take this serious. You know, how serious do I take this? Yesterday, I moved my daughter into Whitney Center. So she'll be a sophomore at Rowan University. I turned her over, put her in her dorms, and kissed her goodbye to stay in the dorms. So, you know, I don't think there's any better endorsement of our plan that we put together, and my belief in the plan, that I'm turning my daughter over to the care of the university for the semester for her health and well-being. And before she left, I put a lot of trust. I said, Julia, the only way you're going home is if we do it to ourselves. So she takes I think a lot of the students take personal responsibility. And I know as a group of administrators and faculty, we also take personal responsibility. So I look forward to answering questions and hearing what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Tony, and good luck to your daughter. I hope she has a great year. For health and safety protocols, Scott, we're hoping you can give us an update.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mayor Wallace. I really appreciate the opportunity here. I am a true Glassboro fan, born and raised in Glassboro, so I have a lot of roots there in Glassboro. Not only that, before coming to Rowan, I was the Director of Public Health Nursing for the Gloucester County Health Department. So I would argue, especially on this phone call, I've vaccinated more Glassboro residents for the flu than anyone else on here. So that is a true statement. And really that collaboration and what Dr. Lowen has been talking about, he talked about flexibility as the cornerstone for sure of our plan, but you know, protecting those most vulnerable is really the overarching theme that we had guiding the decisions we've made over the past 6-8 months, really. And part of that is our collaborations with the county. We are, I would venture to say, the only university that has such strong ties with our public health department. You know, we are constantly in communication with them, creating plans together. We've actually helped them run their testing clinics. So we are not just where our borders stop at Rowan University. That doesn't stop for what we do in our operations. We are all throughout Glassboro and the county and our surrounding counties as well. So we care about not just our students and our staff, and we know it's on all of us. It's not just on our students, it's on all of us. So we know that. We have a pretty comprehensive testing and isolation plan. Again, we knew that we had to make sure we could keep students safe on campus, well and safe, so we're not sending them all over the place if they do become sick or positive for COVID. So we're prepared for all those contingencies. We have multiple testing sites. Dr. Connors was gracious enough to let me take over historic Hollybush Mansion to do testing. So we're doing all kinds of things on campus to make sure we're testing symptomatic and asymptomatic folks as well. So working on that. We're going to be giving out a lot of flu shots in the fall. I'll be seeing many of you because we'll be helping the Gloucester County administer them. We have good pipelines, good relationships with emergency management up and down as well. So we're confident that we'll be able to handle the bumps that'll come our way, because as you know, this is an unprecedented pandemic, once in a generation, once in a lifetime, that we're working through, and we've got all the experts at our fingertips. So we will be doing the best we can to keep everyone safe on and off campus.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Just want to let everyone know I do see the questions. We will get to the questions when everyone is finished with their opening remarks, but I do see them. So thank you very much. At this time, Kevin, could you give us an update on the student life and activities?
Yes, good evening. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to my Glassboro colleagues for this opportunity. This is amazing. And as was noted, I'm the new kid on the block. I've only been in Glassboro since February, but I can tell you that I've been in student affairs for 31 years, and in this 6 months, I have absolutely fallen in love with Glassboro. So this community is just as important to me as it is to some of the long-timers, so I really appreciate this opportunity. And I also know in my role as Dean of Students that I play a critical role in the legitimate concerns and fears that you have. I know that you're relying on me to put some things into place, and I take that role very seriously and want to be your partner in that. So just want to talk about a couple of things that I think are important pieces of the puzzle. First and foremost, we're educators. That's what we do for a living, and so we've taken that role very seriously, and throughout the summer we have done virtual sessions. We have sent out newsletters, emails to really educate our students about what we expect of them, what's happening on campus, what are the decisions that we're making. My staff and I are going and we're doing knock-and talks. We know that there are some areas of concern that have been identified from the past. We're going to talk to those residents. We have talked to those residents to say, let's be good neighbors, let's be good partners. So the education piece is something that's really important to us, and we've already been doing that. In addition, we're resources to our students. We're not just saying to our students, here's what we expect of you. We're giving them the resources. So we're giving them kits with thermometers and with masks and with educational materials. We're giving them the supplies that they need to follow through with the expectations that we have of them, and that's important. As I've seen from many of your questions, and certainly appreciate them, we're agents of accountability, and I think that's something that probably many of you want to hear this evening, and to know that we've changed the code. So the code very specifically now has a policy that talks about making sure that they're abiding by rules and regulations that apply to the pandemic, and making sure that they understand that we have expectations related to the health of our campus and of our community, and we expect our students to abide by that. So we've changed the code to very specifically reflect what we expect of our students, what we want them to do. We're responding to reports. I don't ask my staff to do that. I do that myself. So when I get reports from the community, when I get concerns expressed about students maybe not living up to our expectations, I meet with them. I met with a student right before this session. So that's something that I take very seriously. And I want them to hear from me as the Dean of Students of what do I expect, where are we going to go, and what are potential consequences if we don't get there. So we're meeting with them. I also think it's important to understand, please know as community members, I take that role very seriously, but we also have a scope of authority. So somebody who might look like they're a student or might appear to be a student, sometimes I don't have a scope of authority there. And so please know that doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean that we're not interested. We're going to educate our students. But on some levels, if I get a report and it's not a student, we're limited in the things that we can do. And then the other thing, that we're agents of enforcement. And so we're monitoring students who are coming from states that the governor has listed as quarantine concerns. Even that's a moving target. Scott and I meet on a regular basis. That's been as high as 38 states and 2 territories, and now it's down to 31. And so that changes on a regular basis, but we are monitoring those students. We are staying in contact with them. We're working with the Glassboro Police Department. I think they have been excellent partners, certainly with me, and I know with our police department, but they know that I'm a resource to them. They know that they can call me at any point in time and have that fabulous relationship, so that we are working together. And then I think it's been communicated, but certainly we will share far and wide. There's a link that you can go to at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you've got a concern, we want to hear about it. I promise you we're going to respond to it. I promise you we're going to look into it. So we're trying to have the mechanisms in place to help you so that we can work together, so that you can report, know that we're going to follow up, know that we're going to help students understand the expectations we have of them, and know that we're going to hold them accountable. So as Tony said earlier, we know that a vast majority of our students are going to do the right thing. They absolutely are in this with us. They're committed to it. They're passionate about success. But we also know there's going to be some students that don't follow procedures, and we're going to hold them accountable. So we want to be good partners. We want you to know we're here for you. And if there's anything I can ever do for you personally, reach out and let me know, and I promise you we'll follow up. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Kevin, and welcome to Glassboro, and we are glad you are here. While I've only known you for a short period, I think I've spoken to you more than anybody I've ever spoken in Glassboro, and thank you. And just a quick note, our first meeting with Kevin, when someone gives you their cell phone number and says, call me any time of the day, he means business. So I really appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you very much. At this time, Lieutenant McCain, Rowan Police.
Hi, thank you for letting me sit in for Mike today. I know wish he could be here himself. Get a little background about myself. I've been with Rowan Police for 13 years now. Born and raised in Glassboro, graduated in 2005, right across the street, attended Rowan. So I'm very familiar with the community and some of the issues we have. Some of the things we're prepared for are obviously the influx of students, both on and off campus. We look forward to trying to assist Glassboro Police. We're increasing our staff on Thursday and Friday and Saturday nights to respond to party calls off campus as well, along with their officers, so we can try to locate and eliminate any type of residents that seem to be a problem, so we can report back to Kevin so he can address it in a timely manner and give the residents some reassurance that we're going to address this, and we're working hand in hand with the Glassboro Police Department. We're obviously flexible. Usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights are the busy nights, but now with the remote learning, we're going to have to be flexible and understand that it may be now Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and just our staffing is necessary. We have our own dispatch center. We can obviously handle our calls and assist the Glassboro Police Department as needed. We encourage residents, if they have issues with students, to call us. We can report it to them. We can report it to the Dean of Students and get you to the appropriate person to report any issues you're having with residents or rentals in the area.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And at this time, I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was on mute or not. Chief Palillo.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to be able to be involved in this group. One thing I want to say right off the bat is that I'll echo what Ed said, is that we have the relationship that we have with Rowan has grown exponentially in a very short period of time. We've come together very quickly to try to come up with a game plan. I feel like we're all on the same page. And the biggest thing that I see so far that I think is going to allow us to address everything and come out of this side by side together is that we're unified in our approach. We're unified in how we're handling the complaints. We're unified in what we believe is appropriate ways to address students and any large parties. Large parties, they're the biggest concern. And I've had countless meetings with our prosecutor and with the Attorney General's office regarding what they feel is appropriate. And we're business as usual at our police department. We handle our complaints. We're proactive with what we see. We try to address them before they get out of control. So that, with those things being said, the prosecutor wants us to take that type of stance, which I explained to them that we're already that type of police department. So we try to address things before they get out of control. So one thing that you're going to see is that, we're going to utilize every resource that we possibly have at our fingertips to try to make the town even safer and to try to address these concerns of these large parties and these large gatherings. And even the large crowds that happen to be, that we're known for here is that are roaming the streets, late early morning hours. And we're going to use every resource. We're going to tap into the resources of the Rowan Police Department. We're going to continue to follow up with the Dean of Students. We have a close relationship with him in a very short period of time, which is very exciting to me, because I think it's going to grow into something that's going to be an enormous resource, as well as the resources of the university. Just want to let everybody know, like a little bit about me, and I didn't do it in the beginning, but I'm from Glassboro, 46 years, lived here, born, raised here, went to school here. I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on what the town needs, and I try to spread that down to my administrative staff. But I'm a very good listener, and one thing I have that I try to express to everybody is I would rather have people come in and talk to me about any complaint that they have, call me, email me, at any time. I'm wide open for any type of communication that we need to have, and I want to address the complaint before it grows into a bigger problem. So I feel my email's available, my phone number's available. I'm always there. Just please do not hesitate to try to reach out to me.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And our last speaker before we go to questions tonight is Monica Shealy, who will give us an update on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Welcome.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica Shealy, and I am the Senior Vice President for our new division, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The division launched in January of 2019. And prior to that, I was the Dean of the College of Education for 6 years. So I became very familiar with Glassboro through our work with the Professional Development Schools Network, which we expanded almost district-wide during my 6 years as Dean. So I'm here to just briefly tell you a little bit about what we've been doing with the division to ensure that our campus is safe and equitable, and that we address some persistent issues that are brought to us, certainly from our students, faculty, and staff. When we launched the division in 2019, we went on a listening tour and we listened to our community to find out what the pressing issues they were facing related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just this past semester, we followed up with an equity audit. We extended this climate survey to include Glassboro residents. For the first time, we surveyed our residents to find out what issues they believe are persistent related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That gave us a historical, socio-political context to be able to help us, to help our students navigate the community. We know what's happening in our country right now. We know that there is racial unrest. There are a lot of angry, hurt, disappointed individuals that are going to be coming back to campus very soon. We know that the pandemic, in some ways, it makes it even more difficult to be able to address some of these other social issues. So there are several levels of trauma that our students, faculty, and staff may be bringing back to campus. We're working with the Wellness Center to expand the racial healing dialogue circles that they started. We're partnering with them to extend that to all 3 campuses. We are also providing programming, virtual and face-to-face programming for all of our students, and we're engaged in professional development. We are trying to make sure that, as Kevin said, we educate our community. That's what we're primarily here to do. And so we want to be sure that through this education, we are addressing certainly an awareness that we all need to have as we talk about diversity. We define diversity very broadly, and so we want to be sure and be consistent with our language. We also talk about equity and addressing barriers for our students and being able to be successful. And then finally, inclusivity, making sure that everyone has an opportunity to get access to the range of programming services, that they feel welcome. And I have to applaud the Rowan Public Safety Police and Glassboro Police for working with us and starting a dialogue that we believe will result in a more intentional and strategic plan moving forward. We held a virtual session right after the murder of George Floyd, and many of our panelists participated in that session. The last one was titled Navigating Campus and Community. In that session, we committed to doing exactly what we're doing today: collaborating, communicating on an ongoing basis, addressing issues that many believe keep us divided, and making sure that Glassboro is the place where our students, faculty, and staff, they feel safe, they feel welcome, and they know that we're working together to ensure that we live out our commitments to our values, what we say we believe. So I'm excited to work with the panelists and work with our community. We have a lot of work to do. It's a great thing that we have a lot of work to do because there's lots of opportunities to build. And it's also unfortunate that we are still addressing some issues that our country has been facing for many, many years. But what if Glassboro can be a model? What if we could be a model for how universities and communities partner together to solve some of these problems that are facing our country right now? So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks, Monica. And I know we have a couple things in the works between the borough and the university, and we're really looking forward to rolling them out. So thank you very much. So at this point, we will take questions. The first question is actually an easy one. It's already been answered. But again, I know that folks that are on this cannot see the questions. So I do see the questions. If you have a question, put it in. The first question was, how many students did Mr. Lohman say are in the dorms? The answer to that is 4,400 students are currently in the dorms right now. So I will go to some of the questions that came in earlier. Some of these topics have been addressed, but
Ed?
Yes.
If I may,
Sure.
it might be helpful for the community to hear from Kevin about the move-in process and how it's been scheduled to be safe and very deliberately controlled.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And as Ed said, we do have about 4,400 students right now. We've extended that process over a 10-day period to promote social distancing. If you've been around for a while, you realize that move-in is typically in a weekend, and it's kind of a lot of hustle and bustle. And so we've done that over a 10-day period. Our capacity, we're only at about 56% capacity, and that's again intentional to promote dedensification, to promote spreading students out, to make sure that we are paying attention to the needs of our students with social distancing. But we also have buildings that are identified if we do have students that need to quarantine or do need to have special circumstances. We're very prepared for that. Scott and his team have done amazing work to prepare for that and to have a protocol in place that we follow very diligently. So if a student is in a situation where maybe it doesn't have to be, sometimes we think of it in terms of, well, that person is tested positive or that person is a higher risk. That's not always the case. So there are lots of factors that could contribute to somebody being moved to our specialized housing, and know that we are taking care of those students. We are helping them and giving them lots of options. So it's not only just spreading things out over multiple days, but it's making sure that we're able to react to situations as they come up.
Thanks, Kevin. If there's no other comments at this point, I will go to the questions. And the first question I have is, has the university articulated any restrictions or precautions for students living in the community? Are there any additional ramifications imposed by the university for no adherence to masks, social distancing, and crowd size during this time of COVID?
Yes, we've articulated to students on a number of levels. As I said, throughout the summer, we've sent emails, we've done virtual sessions, we have done educational pieces in PowerPoints and asking them to sign acknowledgments that they understand their responsibilities. As I mentioned earlier, we've also changed the code, and that's very significant. Typically in higher education, codes of conduct stay pretty consistent, and we've been very diligent to help our students understand that the code has changed, and there are policies that now specifically relate to health-related concerns and COVID. So we have done that. We will continue to do that. As far as enhanced accountability, absolutely. The students know we've worked very diligently with Tony and his academic deans related to behavior in classrooms, related to mask wearing, but also helping people understand that they are going to be accountable. Again, as we've talked about, and Dr. Shealy's talked about, and I've talked about, we're going to educate students. Certainly, we're going to pay attention to each individual circumstance. That there are some scenarios that the education is the best thing. There are some scenarios where I might have to say to a student, I'm sorry, it's time for you to move to completely online classes and go home, or it's time for you no longer to be a part of this community. We are prepared to do that, but we're going to do it based upon the context, based upon the individual circumstances. We want students to know, first and foremost, we care about them. We want them to be successful. Sometimes it is just an education and a lack of awareness, as hard as that is sometimes to say with all the things that are happening in the media. But we're going to educate. But those students who don't want to comply with our policies and regulations, I can tell you that we are committed to holding them accountable. We are committed to asking them either to go to an online environment or not to be a part of the community if they're not going to comply with those standards. So we take that very seriously. We're going to do it both from an education and an accountability standpoint.
Thanks, Kevin. And I think the answer you just gave is going to answer this question that just came in as well. What are you planning to do about the frat houses? You beep, we drink. I think you've addressed it. I don't know if there's anything additional you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and one of the meetings I just had today was related to that. One of the things I want to say is our Greek community has lots of amazing things to offer, and I want to make sure that we are paying attention to all sides of this. Certainly, there are stereotypes. Certainly, there are things that we want our Greek community to improve upon. But please know that there are a lot of really good things happening. There's lots of really positive things happening. We know that Greek life is certainly a part of the social scene. We get that. We understand that. And even outside of the context of COVID world, having something that says, you beep, we drink, that's not appropriate. That's not living up to who we are as a community. It's not living up to our standards. And so as the Dean of Students, I can tell you that I'm working very diligently with not only our Greek community, but our student athletes and our other clubs and organizations to help them understand that we've got an amazing opportunity to help our community, to help our partners, and to eliminate some of the stereotypes that are out there. So yes, we're meeting with them. I've sent very intentional messages to that community. We've actually had a virtual session just for our Greek members and our student athletes, and we will hold them accountable as reports come in and as concerns come in, but we're also trying to be proactive and prevent some of that from happening.
Thanks, Kevin. The next question is, who and how are the off-campus students going to be monitored? And more specifically, is anyone checking that they are quarantined, I guess, when they come from an advisory state into New Jersey?
And I certainly don't want to monopolize the answers.
You're going to.
We could tag team this, Kevin, for sure.
This applies to Scott and myself. We have, we went through, Scott and I went through every student who was listed, whether it's for 1 credit hour or 20 credit hours. We went through and we identified about 600 individuals that were from areas that the governor has listed as a quarantine state. And actually have communicated with them with 2 different surveys, and depending on their answers, we put into motion what they need to do. So we are monitoring those students. We are paying attention to those students. Again, one of the challenges becomes, and I'll use our Delaware residents as an example. One of the challenges comes is in 1 week they might be on the list, the next week they might not. And so we certainly have done a lot of work, but Delaware has been on and off the governor's list, I think 2 or 3 times. And so,
brutal.
So as diligent as we are, that's a moving target. And so we are monitoring those students. We have databases that are as detailed to say, Scott Woodside came to not only campus, but please understand we're doing this for off campus too. Students are saying, hey, I moved to New Jersey on August 8th. Well, then we have 14 days later, they can start in-person activities. So we're monitoring that, and we have a database. And I'll let Scott talk because he certainly knows better than I from the health standpoint.
Well, what I would say is about 4 months ago, no one knew what the word contact investigator meant. And now it's a household term. I used to run the contact investigation process. I would train my team of public health nurses to do contact investigation. I've done that same thing at Rowan. We've trained 16 people to help me do the contact investigation. Every student that we have to isolate for COVID-related reasons, we have multiple checkpoints with them. My team checks in with them. Kevin's team checks in with them. We have a mental health professional check in with them. And that's just to name the 3. There's other processes we have to monitor them. So we also are able to isolate students who are living off campus, but living in a multi-person dwelling on our campus. So it's not just we're sending people off of our campus. We're actually bringing them in because we know we can monitor them even closer. So we've got a lot of plans in place to help with the isolation and quarantine process. And so far, the majority of any of the calls we've had to make over the past 6-8 months, people have been pretty good. As Kevin had mentioned before, there's always going to be an issue, and we'll have to tackle them. But most individuals I've dealt with in our investigation process have been very willing and compliant. So we're hoping that continues.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question is, how often are students being tested, and how many will have to test positive before the campus is closed down?
Nice, a 2-pronged question. So the first one is pretty easy. Our main focus is to test symptomatic individuals. We've actually already started that process. I mentioned Hollybush. We have that up and running. We've been testing students already. We've got actually pretty good turnaround times, 24 hours. So I'm pretty happy right now with our commercial testing process. But just in case, and my team here knows, I've talked about this, the concerns as more and more people get tested across the country. We've invested in a lab quality testing machine that we'll be able to use this fall. That'll give us rapid 45-minute turnarounds. We've got to deal with Cooper to do rapid testing. We're in constant communication with both Jefferson and Aspira. So our testing capabilities are pretty robust. We've invested in the saliva test, as many people know it, to do our asymptomatic testing. So every week we're testing 1 to 3% of our population on campus to make sure that we're picking up any asymptomatic individuals. So it's a 2-pronged approach there, similar to this 2-pronged question. Ed, remind me, what was the second part of that question?
The second part of the question was, how many cases will you have to have
Oh, yes.
before you shut the campus down?
So Dr. Conrad mentioned the metrics, right, and how that is. We have a team of people that are looking at that nonstop. We have multiple sources of information. I do get this question a lot from many people, and really the answer is our plan is flexible, as Dr. Lohman said. So we have many opportunities to mitigate issues that pop up on campus or off campus pretty agilely. However, we're going to look at not just on campus. So on campus, we're looking at the positivity rate of the test that I'm doing and of the asymptomatic testing. We're looking at the number of cases that we have. We're looking at outbreaks if there are any outbreaks, if there are unrelated outbreaks. So if that's the case, that means there may be some source that we're not aware of. So we're looking for those things as well. Off campus, we're looking at ICU capacity and ER visits. We're looking at the positivity rate, the number of cases in Gloucester, Burlington, and Camden. So we're looking at all those things, and we're putting a total package together, and we're able to modify our operation based on what we're seeing. And it's really not going to be like a light switch. It's going to be more like a switchboard, where we're plugging many different plans in place to address issues as they come up, if you can think of that visual. But believe me, it is certainly being looked at, and we are certainly closely monitoring all those variables to make sure that we're making the best decision for our community.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to try to push us along a little bit just so we can get all the questions in. We have 15 minutes remaining. And Dr. Lohman has already answered this question. The question was, will Glassboro High School students taking college courses still be attending them? And I don't want to speak for you, Dr. Lohman, but I will try to push it along. I can't speak for every case, but yes, this opportunity exists for these students.
And I'll just add to that question is that they'll be following the course format that's mandated for each course that we're delivering. So it'll be a mix of hybrid, online, and face-to-face, depending on the stage.
Thank you. This next question is kind of a difficult one. It says, will the school have the students sign a pledge of some kind to get buy-in and hold them responsible and set clear consequences if Rowan's guidelines are broken?
Yeah, that's actually an easy answer because we've already done that. We already have in place that every student has been sent. Not only do they have to sign the acknowledgement, what some people are calling a pledge, the acknowledgement, but we actually are also requiring our students to go through a PowerPoint presentation that Scott and I and others have created so that they, again, understand what's the real information, what's the factual information, what are the expectations we have as a university, what are potential consequences. So they have to go through that two-pronged approach. And as I said before, yes, we will absolutely hold people accountable. Our primary focus is to educate them. But if students don't want to be compliant with that, then we'll make alternative arrangements for them to get their education or to leave the Rowan community.
Thank you. And again, I think you've answered this question, Kevin, but the question is, we've seen other colleges close on-campus housing and send students home after a house party, for example, caused the breakout of COVID-19. When COVID-19 cases do begin to appear on campus, is it your plan to contain the cases in the sick dorm and truly utilize it to full capacity as planned, or do you plan to quickly send kids home at the first outbreak?
Well, I'll let Scott answer this a little more in detail, but again, I think that goes to the agility of our plan. Depending on the circumstances of what happens, we have the ability to, maybe it's addressing a specific residence hall, maybe it's addressing a specific area of off-campus or on-campus, maybe it is an institution-wide thing. It's going to be based upon the circumstances, but we've got flexibility in our plans to be able to address all that. And I'll let Scott talk more specifically there.
Well, I think what's important for our Glassboro neighbors to know is that we've been managing things like this since ever. So students come to the Wellness Center, we diagnose them with a clinical disease, we send them home, we come up with an isolation plan for them. That's something that we've always done. We've worked internally with the Dean of Students to make sure that accommodations are made and that sort of thing. So I mean, that certainly will continue. We're going to work with students on an individual basis. If there is an outbreak, it really depends. I mean, having worked in public health, no outbreak, and really the definition of an outbreak is 2 or more related cases. So if for us to say that an outbreak would shut down, a campus of, 4,400, residential students and another, 16,000 students and faculty and staff. It really depends on the situation. I think we'll look at each one and carefully analyze what are the risks and what's the safest way to proceed. So it's again, not really a cookie cutter light switch type answer. It's more of, we have to look at the variables and make a safe decision for everybody involved. But, we won't hesitate to remove, isolate, quarantine, do whatever we have to do to protect the public and our community in Glassboro.
And just as a clarification, obviously safety and health are primary and paramount. We will always pay attention to those, but realize that we've got a faction of our student community that they don't have a place to go. Maybe they're homeless. Maybe their family situation isn't such that they can just leave campus. And so that's a population that we have to also pay attention to and make sure that we are meeting their needs.
And I want to add to that, one of the, as we discussed with our restart, a big part of that decision came in the fact that if we don't provide housing for these students, they're going to look for housing in the surrounding community, which is only going to, in the event that there were outbreaks, we just simply put more students in the community. We want to avoid that. We believe, and all the evidence points to, the safest place in some cases to have the students in residence in the dorms where they have access to food, technology, and a learning environment. Better there than if we shut it down and they turn loose in the neighborhoods, and all of a sudden houses that have spaces for, let's say, 8 students suddenly have 16 and 20, and we make matters worse. So we fully intend to follow our plan. We believe it's the right plan that's safest for everybody. And so, no, we are not just going to fold the tent up and throw everybody out. We have a plan, and we're going to stick with it.
And I just want to add that, the part of the plan, of course, is not to be blind to the fact that if things were to turn disastrous in the worst case scenario, are we considering that? Of course we are. It's just part of prudent planning. So, we are literally prepared for every scenario, literally. And by the way, that's probably the most exhausting path we could have chosen. There are some schools that said, let's just shut it down and call it a day and we'll come back next year. But we chose not to do that. And we believe that that's not just to the benefit of our students, but also to the community, because the businesses are suffering. And so we want to try to do this in the safest way possible, but also, to the extent that we can all benefit as well. The campus at best will probably be about half full. That's realistically what we're looking at in terms of professors and students and employees on campus. We wish that it could be more if we could do it safely, and we do believe we have a plan in place that will allow us to. But certainly we're prepared to go in any direction that we have to, depending on what's happening in the community and on the campuses. And also within the state. So, we just want to make sure that everyone understands that we are taking this very seriously, and we're watching. There's 2 things that I thought might be helpful for people to know, and that is for them to know that, the chief and mayor and Ed, that there's a group of us that meet at the beginning of the week, every week, and say, what are the hot spots? What happened over the weekend? What do we need to address? Let's do it right now. And so hopefully that helps people to know that we are taking this seriously and working collaboratively. And also that we're, having lots of other conversations as well, collaboratively and among ourselves. I mean, the metrics that Scott just told you that we're looking at are really significant, because we're not going to be just watching for positive cases on campus, but we're also watching what's happening in the community. We're looking for those precursors. Scott has educated us, to the highest amount, and talked about the fact that the ER visits are a precursor for the fact that a spike could be coming. So we're watching ER visits. We're watching our capacity of the quarantine rooms. We're watching our capacity for testing, making sure that we have enough supplies. And if any of those things look problematic, yes, we are prepared to take whatever action we have to make sure that everybody is safe, including the Glassboro residents.
Thank you all. Just to add to that, Joanne, the mayor and myself get a report every day, and we see the number of cases in Glassboro. and we are monitoring that very, very closely. And I have to say, over the last few days, it's been 1-0, and that's a really nice number to see. So we're doing the same thing from our end, and of course, we share those numbers with you on our Tuesday morning calls.
Oh, and one other thing I wanted to add, Ed, if I may, is just that we are working with the landlords in town as well. Joe Cardona has helped facilitate conversations. I see that he's one of our attendees. And so Joe has been helpful we're getting information out to them, educational materials. We want to have an open dialogue with them if there are problems, and to prevent problems. And in fact, he texted me earlier and asked if I could speak with the landlords tomorrow at 2:30. So we intend to have a dialogue with them that's ongoing as well. We want to look at this from every angle and make sure that there is no stone left unturned in terms of the safety of the university community.
Thank you. Let's change it up a little bit and get the law enforcement involved here. And the question is, can the Glassboro Police and Rowan Police shut down future events, meaning parties, due to the present pandemic orders? And what this person was referencing was there was a big party in a neighborhood, and it existed, and they want to know if you guys can shut it down. So, Chief, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I'll take it. So everybody, understands that the executive orders that the governor's put out and they've changed, and it's an evolving situation. It's very fluid. Right now, currently, outside gatherings is at 500. Along with that, you have to be able to still socially distance and wear a mask. So with that being said, if we get complaints of a party that is out of control, a nuisance, and we get out there and we see the numbers are reaching something that looks like it's concerning, we have a protocol in place with the prosecutor's office to contact the prosecutor and seek further advisement at that time as to whether we want to proceed with charges. Now, it's kind of a fine line as to forcefully emptying out a party. So the stance that the Attorney General and the prosecutor had taken and have guided us with is each occurrence that we go out there, if they haven't shut it down, is another charge on top of that. So yes, eventually you would hope that the message would be sent that you're going to keep getting charged every time that we have to respond out if you don't take it upon yourself to clear out your party. That may be, if we get neighbor complaints from that there's a large gathering where they're not wearing masks. Obviously, we could go out and address that with the resident there, try to gain compliance by, getting creating a dialogue with them first. And then if they're just not willing to comply, then obviously at that point, we would reach out for the prosecutor and seek her advice as far as whether we're going to move forward with charges or not. But just shutting a party down, and we wouldn't be able to forcefully clear out a party based off of that.
Thanks, John. Lieutenant McCain, anything you'd like to add?
Just echo what the chief said. We're here to assist them with any of the off-campus parties, and obviously vice versa for anything on campus. But it's not as simple as just going and knocking on the door and asking them to shut it down. It's a little more complicated than that.
Thank you. Really, we have one last question, and from a timing perspective, we have 2 minutes, so it's working. The question is, do you believe the Wellness Center is prepared and equipped to manage the virus? If so, in what ways?
Sorry, it's 5 seconds trying to find the mute button. I would say, as in everything that I've already stated, the main function of the Wellness Center right now is to take care of the health and well-being of our students. So we're capable to do that. We're doing a lot of telemedicine. Same thing with our counseling resources. Our counseling has been as busy as ever over the summer. In fact, because we have this new technology of telehealth, we've been able to help our students cope through the pandemic in the summer, where normally they're 2-3 hours away. So we've actually been fortunate to leverage the technology to support our students in a way that we really couldn't before. So that's definitely the upside. in addition to that, I've talked a lot about the isolation testing procedures, and I think I highlighted them and what we can do, confident that it's not just a wellness center. And believe me, there's nothing to do with the wellness of our campus is solely isolated to the brick and mortar of Winans Hall. And that's one of the reasons why we created Rowan Thrive and a cares team. And we have multiple resources across campus to help with the health and wellness and really the well-being of the campus. But in terms of the physical health and the mental health, I think we're up for the challenge. I mean, it's like I mentioned, they're going to be curveballs and obstacles, and we'll get through them. We have plenty of collaborations and partnerships, whether it's pharmacies, and we got a great collaboration with Cindy in the ShopRite Pharmacy, and Diddy May in the health department, and all the folks at the hospitals that we are very close with in the urgent care. Gina Fisher, who runs the urgent care down the street. I mean, so we have all these collaborations and partnerships if we need that extra support.
Thank you. So that is perfect timing because it takes us right to 8 o'clock. So as we conclude, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. I like to thank everyone who's on the line. I'd like to thank the people for asking the questions. Hopefully this addressed many people's questions and their concerns. I think it's been wonderful. I want to wish Rowan a great start to the year. And anyone out there who wants to get updated information, you can always go to the Rowan Restart page. It's often updated. And both myself and the mayor, from a Glassboro perspective, are always available as well. And I just like to ask our panelists if there are any final comments before we sign off.
I would just like to say thank you again for the opportunity on behalf of Rowan, on behalf of the president, and to let you know that we are hopeful that we'll continue the dialogue in any ways that we see that are needed. So this is a great opportunity for us to be able to directly answer any of the questions. And if this is a format that works, we are happy to continue with this as long as it's helpful. So we're grateful, and we're grateful for you. We're grateful for the collaboration. Chief Palillo, Ed, Mayor, you have been wonderful, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to work side by side with you to make sure that the community is safe. We thank you.
Thank you all. I hope everyone has a great evening.
Ed, if I may, real quick.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's quite all right. I just wanted to, again, to parrot what Joanne just said. And I believe that this was a mission accomplished for this event. Again, the purpose was to convey to everyone that Glassboro and Rowan are working in conjunction. I mean, there's been, like Chief Palillo said, with everything going on, this has been a very fluid thing. And quite honestly, sometimes we have to figure things out on the fly. But first and foremost, that the well-being of the students, the well-being of the residents, the well-being of any human being is first and foremost in all of our minds. And that you are able to listen in and watch tonight and know that even though you may not hear about everything that's going on, there is and always has been and continues to be plans being put in place to ensure that we all remain as safe and healthy as we possibly can. Again, thank you all, and I really appreciate it. I think this was a very great event. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, everyone have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.